Hello and welcome back to the studio. We are going to be talking about a little bit more Star Wars today. If you watched Joseph's video, he mentioned looking at some scenes from Star Wars from the perspective of a master storyteller. I just like to say I appreciate the compliment. I mean, I really do. I take it to heart. I am not a master storyteller. However, I do think that we can get better at analyzing stories and storytelling. There is such a thing as a bad story. It's not like art necessarily where it's up to the viewer. A lot of times it is, but a lot of times that simply means that, you don't know how to recognize what you're looking at. And so if you can recognize what things are happening in the story, how it's being told, you get a better appreciation for what is going on. And so we're going to be looking at one storytelling sort of trope in particular that happens a lot in Star Wars and happens a lot in a lot of other media that can help push a story forward. The scene we're looking at takes place in Star Wars Rebels. It is one of the cartoon TV shows that was released, and it is canon for the Star Wars universe. Number one, what you have to understand about kind of the cartoons is that they're cartoons. They are primarily for children and young people in general, but there's a lot of Star Wars goodness mixed in there. There's a lot of hokey moments and a lot of unnecessary banter that lends itself well to telling a story in a more kid-friendly way and helps kids pay attention. But there's also some really good, poignant scenes in Rebels that we're going to look at. And today we're going to look at the death of Kanan Jarrus. So let's start watching the clip and we can talk about it as well.
Kanan! I know what to say now. I love you.
Must be the truth serum talking.
No.
So just for a little bit of context, Kanan and Ezra and Sabine, the characters that we see in this clip, had to come back here to save their friend Hera, who was captured by the Imperials. And it was there was some other stuff that happened earlier in the episode that led to this moment here.
It's me. All me.
Enough of that. Time to go.
So already we're establishing kind of a atmosphere of success. They've helped Hera escape. They're wrapping up some of the storytelling loose ends of Hera and Kanan's relationship and how they view each other and where they would like to go in the future. Really beautiful music, having the craft come in and light them up is really cool. And then everything kind of goes bad.
Target that fuel pod, now!
But sir, the fuel!
I gave you a direct order.
I just want to mention the fire in this scene is excellent. It looks really cool. The explosion looks really cool. The fire and the smoke coming up, it all looks really great. The important thing here, the storytelling key element, is Kanan sacrificing himself to save his friends, to save his apprentice. Just that kind of student watches their master die kind of idea. And we see this show up a lot in Star Wars. We see Luke watch Obi-Wan get killed by Darth Vader. We see Obi-Wan watch Qui-Gon Jinn be killed by Darth Maul. Ahsoka doesn't actually watch her master die. She has to continue fighting her master after he's essentially dead. And that's a whole different thing that we'll have to talk about later. Even in the show Bad Batch, we get a flashback of Kanan, this character here, watching his master die. And so we see this theme all throughout Star Wars, and it's very important, and often it's an extremely poignant scene. So let's continue here. So just for context, Kanan is blind, and this is kind of his last moment. The show creators said that because this is his last moment, he is kind of merging with the Force as he's using that last bit of his power. The Force sort of almost grants a wish to allow him to see Hera one last time and to see Ezra one last time before he dies. Before I continue, the music as well in this scene it's very Star Warsy. It's similar to some of the other themes that we've heard before, but it is also entirely and uniquely its own. I think it's one of my favorite riffs in the entire Star Wars musical repertoire. But this idea of your main character, your sort of student character watching as their master perishes, either to save them. It's usually to save them. I know in Luke's case with Obi-Wan was occupying Darth Vader. In Kanan's case, his master was occupying the clone troopers that were attacking. This is a incredibly traumatic experience that our hero goes through. At this point in Rebels, this is the last season, so their relationship is kind of different than what we see in a lot of the other stories where the master is kind of lost at the beginning of the training or at the beginning of the story, and then the student has to deal with the trauma and deal with how do I continue training. This is two already well-developed characters, and one of them loses essentially a best friend and a father. And what this does for your story is it allows you to take a character, whether they're nuanced already or not, and add a new layer of incentive, of direction, of lack of direction, stuff for them to kind of, stuff to build off of. You never know what you're going to do. Is your character going to become angry because of this? That's often where you go when you lose your master's anger. Are they going to stumble into a depression? What's going to happen with your character to make them grow or make them falter? Because faltering isn't lack of character development. It is character development for how you want your character to end up ultimately. We see this theme and this kind of recurring song and dance throughout, and you might think, all right, well, now that I notice it, it's going to get tedious. But I don't think that's the case. I think this is a real thing. Stories imitate real life and are often the product of real life. There are true stories where this kind of stuff happens. And in every situation, that loss is powerful and it's strong in the heart. And so seeing it again and again in a story which is a drama is super important, especially a story where you have this relationship that crops up over and over and over again. And it's part of the reason that the Sith relationship in Star Wars is so much different, is because the student often is the one who kills the master. They're the one who they overthrow their master, become the new Sith Lord, and then they start training an apprentice. And they don't really have the same kind of bond and relationship, and they don't have the experience that you would gain from having to suffer through something like this. So when you see it in media, things you need to look out for are, how are they presenting this to me? Are they presenting it as a sort of a way to help build character interactions? Because in this case, you have multiple characters who are friends and colleagues with Kanan, but all of them have kind of a different relationship with him, and it's going to impact the way that they interact with each other. So look for, how are your characters going to change because of it? What is the impact on the story overall? Because a death like this has strong repercussions, and especially in Star Wars, the repercussions can be much larger than you would think because of the Force. There's going to be ripples in the Force. We understand later that Kanan sort of communicates with Ezra through the Force in a kind of roundabout way, not as a Force ghost the way that Obi-Wan does, or that we assume Qui-Gon Jinn does with Obi-Wan. How is this death going to affect the world? You can also play it off as like, well, it's just death. It happens, and it doesn't really affect the world around them. It's not always a big explosion or something that kills the master. You got to look at it like that too. How is that going to affect your characters? Are they going to see this death as meaningless, and is that going to incentivize them to try to change the way things are, or to try and make sense of a meaningless act? And so I think this is a big thing to look at when you're analyzing stories. These relationships are important. So when a death like this happens, it's important to your characters. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Tell me, are there any other instances, especially in Star Wars, of this kind of master-student, the master sacrifices themselves and dies moments in Star Wars? I think there is one in Jedi Fallen Order, which is the video game, which I'm pretty sure is canon. So let me know what you guys think. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.